Today we're back in the Mile High City, touring Empower Field at Mile High. Located in Denver, Colorado, and home of the Denver Broncos football team. Where every game has been sold out since the stadium opened and adjacent to the original Mile High Stadium. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I appreciate that. Every photo you see today was taken by me. Don't forget to write in the comments section what you like about this stadium. And with that, we can start the tour. The stadium has a capacity of 76,125, and it opened back in 2001. The overall layout of the stadium is not uncommon for football. It has 3 tiers of seating and is in the shape of a horseshoe, which is appropriate for this team given the fact it's the Denver Broncos. There are 2 levels of suites at the 200 and 400 level that wrap completely around the stadium, excluding the south end zone. In the south end zone, you have a large single tier of seating, more or less. You have 2 levels where it's kind of split up for people to walk, but there's no suites or anything like that in between. You then have the United Club that's located along either sideline. The club levels at NFL stadiums seem to usually be very, very nice, and that's no different walking around this stadium. You can see here, very inviting. Major League Baseball stadiums tend to have more things to do throughout the stadium, but most of the NFL stadiums I've been to, the club level definitely beats out anything you would see in Major League Baseball. In the north end zone, they have 2 video boards in the upper deck. I think that's pretty unique. Don't see that a lot in stadiums. You can also see here that you have the Bronco logo in the seats. I always like when you do that. You don't see it a lot in the United States, something that you see over in Europe quite a bit with soccer stadiums, but I think it's a nice touch. Even though the stadium layout may not be that unique, they have done some subtle things throughout. If you look at the very top of the seating where it ends, it doesn't end just straight across, it moves up and down. So little things like that separate it from some of the other stadiums. Looking at the exterior of the stadium, you can see that the architecture has waves really vertically and horizontally, and you can see the seats moving up and down, and then the stadium moves in and out horizontally. On the west side of the stadium, they have a plaza, and you can see down below that they have art sculptures of various different things related to football. They have a T and a mouth guard and things like that. And in the background, in the distance, you can see the Rocky Mountains, and depending on what time of year you are there, you can see the snow. You can see in this photo when I was there that they were snow covered, which was really pretty. Now we're down in that plaza, looking back at the stadium where we just were. You can see some of the art sculptures, and then they also even have a charging station as well. I was discussing earlier how the architecture is such a way that they have this horizontal wave effect as you move around the stadium, and this is just a close-up of that steel framing showing how they create that wave effect. You can see it moving towards and away from the stadium. In the previous view, if you look beyond the steel framing, you could see downtown Denver in the background. And the stadium is just west of downtown, so when you're walking around the stadium, you can actually look out and see downtown Denver, and you can see where the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche play as well. This is a view of the 200 level of suites that wraps around the stadium. You can see here when you're in this area, you can't walk out and sit outside during the game. In this view, we're a little bit higher up. We're on the 400 level of suites that wrap around. This particular location is actually where the press is, so it's not a suite location, but you can kind of see what the view is as you would wrap around the stadium. This is a view taken a few steps back away from the field, and you can see the area set up for the media. This view is not an individual suite, but we're still on the 400 level of suites. We walked over to the north side of the stadium at this point. Now this is a view of one of the individual suites. This is behind the end zone, again still on the 400 level. It's very nice. You compare some of the Major League Baseball stadium suites, they're a lot smaller. This one's huge. You could fit a lot of people in here. Now we're heading just outside the stadium to the parking lot. Where the parking lot is where the old Mile High Stadium used to be. And if you look at the grass that wraps around the parking lot, that kind of shows where the perimeter of the stadium was. And where the old Mile High Stadium used to be in that parking lot, they have this replica, small little version of the stadium. Obviously not very exact, but it's a cool, fun thing to go check out when you're there. This is a view inside that mini stadium. It's not a model that you stand outside and look at. They actually have a little tiny mini field in there with some actual seats, so you could go there, play, flag football with your friends or whatever. So not something I've seen before, but something interesting. This is a view from that same little mini stadium looking back at the main Mile High Stadium. It's got a great view, and you can see where you are in relation to that. So yeah, if you're here, you have kids, come down, bring them down here. They can run around and you can relax a little bit. So, something to think about. When I was at the stadium, I took one of the tours, and part of that tour is you go into the visiting team's locker room. If you've seen my Philadelphia Eagles video, they actually take you into the home team locker room. That wasn't the case on this tour, unfortunately. So this is just the visitors. It's pretty boring, mundane, has the NFL logo. They did a lot of stuff to try to mess with the visiting team. They have a wall that kind of divides the locker room. So it's interesting to check out, but unfortunately it's not the home team locker room. And this is what they said is the equipment they provide the visiting team. They said that there isn't rules on what they need to provide. They just have to provide something. So again, they're just trying to mess with the visiting team, which I thought was pretty interesting. And keeping with that theme, they have this nice little note reminding them that they're a mile above sea level. Now everybody knows that, it's altitude is the Mile High City, but they just want to remind the team, hey, look, you may run out of breath. We've been training up here and we have the advantage. So it's all a mind game. Another feature of the stadium is the large video board on the south end zone. In 2013, they renovated it and tripled it in size. I believe there may be some renovations going on now, but it's, on the north side, you have the two video boards on the upper deck, and then you have this large one on the opposite side. And this is just a view on the outside of the stadium looking back at that large video board. This stadium is large. It's over 70,000 seats, and when you're up in the stands, you can tell it's a very large stadium. You look at the south end zone, it looks huge. But I was kind of surprised when I was actually walking around the field looking up at the seats that it didn't seem that imposing. So it was kind of this small feeling to it, even though it was really large. This is a quote from the former owner of the Denver Broncos, Pat Bowlen. And as you walk around the stadium, you'll see a lot of things that are similar to this. And if you go outside the stadium and on the south side, you have this statue of Pat Bowlen, and you can go and they have all this information about him that you can read about. So if you're there, I would recommend going down and checking that out. When you're out there looking at Pat Bowlen's statue, if you turn around back towards the stadium, you can see they have this waterfall and then a bunch of sculptures of horses. And then I don't know if you noticed, but on top of the video board, they have a 30-foot statue of a horse. Bonus points if you know the name of that horse. If not, you can look it up. The architecture on the interior of the stadium is pretty basic, as I mentioned before, but the exterior has some great features. It's very unique, and this is just kind of showing off a mix of the architecture on the outside. And I think this is just another great view showing the exterior and showing the architecture. Not a whole lot to add about that, but just I think it shows it off very well here. And you can see from this photo that the stadium has natural grass. It's not artificial like a lot of places. And I think that's great. So even though they're in Denver and it can get cold, they have natural grass. I believe it's Kentucky bluegrass. So definitely adds to the stadium. Every game has been sold out since this place opened, and it's a very intimidating environment. One of the toughest places to play in the NFL. And I think this is just a great view showing that off. Looking at the south end zone, it's just a wall of seating. So, if you can imagine during game day looking up and there's really no dividers, I think it's a great thing that they did with this stadium. Kind of similar to what they did at Ohio State as well. This is another view looking at the seating of the south end zone. You can see they have their 3 Super Bowls up top, 2 with John Elway and 1 with Peyton Manning. Most videos I like to throw in a photo of myself at the stadium, showing that I was actually there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that. I'll keep doing videos. This takes us towards the end of the tour. You can write in the comment section what stadium you want me to do a video on next. And take care. I'll see you next time.